On one of the projects, we were using Salesforce CPQ from Steel Bricks package, and we were using advanced approvals. So when we started to use both of them together, so we used it in a regular manner. We have a quote, so we are sending that quote for approval, and after that we are waiting when our approvers will actually approve the quote. So based on the process, when we submit our quote for approval, it's going to validate in status, and we are waiting when our experts will review that specific quote. But what we find out that one of the defects was logged on our wall, that at this moment when we, after update of the quote, clicking it submit for approval, right, and then status is updated to validating, we could see that after some time quote automatically going back to the draft status, and it's going back under context of that user who is actually sent that record for approval or did updates on the quote. So we started to investigate what is the reason for this, and we actually find out the following. When we're doing any kind of updates on the quote which are actually making or affect a calculation for their total fields, discount fields, or anything else, CPQ package trying to calculate, like the, let's say, effect of it, right? And update all total fields and others. So when it's doing this precise, so it's actually taking a look, is it complex change or not, right? If it's a complex change, so then it runs that asynchronous process, QueueableCalculatorService. But if it's, like minor changes, so in that case, it could do it in synchronous manner. So in case one is doing it via asynchronous manner, like we have it here, so what we are getting is actually SBQ package grabbing current state of the quote, and it's grabbing the state of the quote in a format of JSON. So it's actually calculating what was the quote, let's say status and all other stuff when it was submitted for like updates. So originally, right, when we're doing updates on the quote, our quote is still sitting in the status draft. So in our case, like when the specific service was working, it's actually grabbed our quote JSON, right? And here was the status draft. So after that, our person actually clicked on submit for approval, right? And what happens after? So when we click on submit for approvals, we automatically update the status of our quote to validating, right? But because that Qeueable job is still working and it still has that old JSON, so after it can finished with its validations, right, it's updating all other fields, plus it returned for some reason back to the quote all the state of the quote was here previously. Especially it's related to status field. So what we find out, right? So it returned back our status to draft, and just because it's run it under context of the same users, it's like what's not visible in the beginning. So what is actually idea or how we could avoid the situation, right, when CPQ packages actually override back state of the quote, especially when we under our context, right, when we are using submit for approval button. So when we're clicking on submit for approval button, it's actually what we could use. We could use one of the fields which is available on the quote, and it's standard, let's say, or a part of the CPQ package, a field on the quote which is called CPQ Uncalculated. So that is actually a field that is Boolean field, right? So it's actually true or false. And when quote is considered outdated, right? So in that case, CPQ package is actually making sure that that field is up to date. And based on that field, what we actually could do. So when we click on submit for approval, if we could see that uncalculated at this moment, like equal to true, so that means that we are still doing calculation, or CPQ package still doing calculations, right? So in that case, what we could show to the user, right? Like, hey, like please try it after some time, right? So when it will be done, that field will become to false. So when the user will click one more time on submit for approval button, he will be able to proceed. And because that job will not be executed at the period of time, right? So then quote will not go back to the draft status. So here is one of interesting gaps of the CPQ package, I would believe, because in general it should not, like just do it, like entire revert, unless if it's some design concept, right? Like for example, you should have kind of blocked quote until the calculations will be done. But in terms of standard UI, right, there are no any kind of block from the package when it's doing its calculation. So we're we'll have to take care about it by ourselves.